I think when we're first starting out, actor is the most logical thing to choose. You go, I don't want to work in an office, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. I want to do something creative. I can't sing, I can't play a musical instrument. I must want to act. Because you don't often, there's not many kind of kids who go, you know what, I want to move into producing, or I want to move into directing theatre, or that sort of thing. So your first outlet is to act. And I was always the kid who acted at school and did the class plays and all that sort of stuff, as I guess most kids are. And also, I think it's a way that you get to entertain people. Straight out of school, I got into theatre sports, which was, at that stage, had Kevin Smith and Craig Parker and Mark Ferguson and Jay Langiaya and all of those guys in it. And it was a really amazing kind of entry point, not only because it gave me a huge amount of experience in front of audiences and doing corporate work, and I worked non-stop for a long amount of time, but also introductions to a whole bunch of professional actors that were great and doing lots of work. And from there I got a play with Michael Hurst. He cast me in a pantomime called Jack and the Beanstalk. And then it just started to sort of snowball from there. I got a good agent. Robert Bruce was my first agent. I applied for a drama school, and they sort of said, well, I got in and they said, well, you have to go up your agent and come down here and not work for a year. And I was kind of like, what? Why would I stop working to learn how to work? And so I just continued working. I sort of treated it like an apprenticeship type style. I found people that I thought were great directors or actors, and I would get groups of people together and say, can you come and teach my friend's character work, or can you come and teach us script work, or things like that. I diversified a lot because I think if you tried to make a living just as an actor in this country, it would be very hard. But also I didn't want to be just an actor, I wanted to be a creative, and it's taken me a long time to kind of come to the point where I can call myself an artist and not cringe about that, because I think everybody thinks by artist you have to be a visual artist or something like that, whereas I now consider that's the best descriptive of what it is I do. And I enjoy doing a whole plethora of things as long as I am good at it and can do it. So I like acting in film, and I like directing plays, and I like acting in plays, and I'm enjoying being the host of Sunrise, and I love doing MC work, and there's a whole host of things that I enjoy doing. And the benefit to that is having so many income streams, is that when they all kind of add up, you have enough to buy a house and to live like a normal person. I love directing theatre. I mean, if somebody came along tomorrow and said, Oliver, we'll pay you enough to pay your mortgage and live a good life and direct theatre every day for the rest of your life, I'd go, I'm there straight away. And when I worked for Auckland Theatre Company as associate director, and then for a year as acting artistic director, that was one of the best times of my life, because you literally went from play to play to play, and you'd finish directing a play, and the second it finished, you'd move straight into another one, or you'd move into a play reading or a workshop, or then you'd be in one. And so for 3 years I got to do nothing but direct and act and choose and be around that craft. Your job is really to be like a private detective, and you've got this script, and then you have to kind of go, well, what did the writer mean by this, and what are they trying to say, and how did this try to work out? And so you and a group of actors and a group of designers sit together, and you spend this time kind of trying to figure it out. And each day you make new discoveries, and you find new things. Oh, maybe that's perfect. And it's a really cooperative venture where you have actors coming to you, and the way it works best is when you get an actor to a certain point, and then they go away and they come back the next day and they've brought it to an even higher level, and you're amazed, and you go, oh wow, look at that. And then you have to step up, and then you get to put it on. It has a definite start date, and you put it on and people come and see it, and you get this immediate response from people, both as an actor but as a director as well, seeing people come into the play and does it work. And it's an old cliche that every audience is different and every show is different, but it really is. It might be subtle, but it's a completely different energy, and there's a risk with it that something might go wrong. An actor might forget their line, there might be something, and that kind of gives it an extra energy. And theatre's about the only thing in the world that only exists when the audience and the actors are in the room together. It never sits on a bookshelf, it never sits on a video store shelf, it never sits in your hard drive or anywhere else. It can only exist when those two things are brought together. And so therefore, yeah, there's this frisson. Stuart Deviney always described it really well. I thought that the thing about theatre is it's not what happens on stage or what happens in the audience, it's what happens in the middle that kind of pulls the two together, and that's where the buzz is. I think City Life, because it was the first big show that I did, and it was big. I mean, they spent a huge amount of money doing it, and compared to Shortland Street, which was the other big show at the time, I mean, we had we had sets that were fully built. You'd go into the apartments, I mean, a set in an apartment, you know, a building of apartments, and every apartment was fully built. The kitchens completely worked. You know, the TV turned on, the PlayStation worked, the shower worked. It was literally like an entire built, you know, you could live there. We used to have crew parties there, and you know, the end of shows like that. A really great bunch of actors and an amazing crew. Once again, Miranda Harcourt was on that, and you know, Kevin Smith was there, and there was a whole bunch of really good young actors who were all sort of starting off with me, and great guest cast and things like that. A lovely comedic role for me to play, which was this kind of stand-up comedian, you know, guy who's innocent and naive, and you know, will take a peppermint thinking it's an ecstasy pill and then actually think he's getting high. And that was also the place where I kind of learnt a lot about how to act in television, not only how to do the technicalities of acting, but the tricks of the trade, and how to learn lines, and how to respond in good ways, and how to tricks. You know, one of the first scenes I remember doing was this big dinner scene where we were all eating, and they shot the wide shot first, and so I was like, free food, great. I was like throwing away and eating and drinking and doing all sorts of stuff. And then it came to my close-up of it, and the continuity person comes up and goes, okay, so on they, you picked up a cup, and on Terry, you put it down, and then you put a piece of food. And I was like, what? And if you watch the rest of the series, I virtually never eat or drink anything again. I just sort of sit in the scene going, yeah. I think when I first entered the show, I sort of went, right, it's me against Paul Henry. That's the job, you know. The job is to out Paul Henry. And after only about 3 or 4 days, I realised that was a terribly bad tactic to take. And that what we do have here is this really strong team of people. As much prep as you do, or as much as the producers or the bosses say, don't do this or don't do that, or make sure you don't talk too much or anything like that, once that 7 a.m. hits, we're live on your television screen. And that's another rush. It's another one of those things where it doesn't exist unless you're watching from your lounge and I'm standing here. You know, there is no ability for it to be. And so you have these great risks, and you fumble lines, and you have to get out of it, and interviews go badly, and you have to kind of fix it. When I first got this job, people were going, you sold out, and I kind of go, well, if this is selling out, I sold out a long time ago. I've been the voice of the warehouse for 3 years. You know, I did front seat on TV1 for 5 years. You know, I've just because I used to own Op TV and now I'm doing this I think selling out means doing something you don't enjoy for money, whereas I am loving this. It was great. I loved Jonathan King, worked with him in Black Sheep, and a great guy. And he phoned me up and said, hey, you know how I'm working on Under the Mountain? And I went, yes. And he went, you wouldn't want to play Mr Wilberforce, would you? And I was like, would I want to play the greatest villain of our country? You know. And when I told my friends about it, it's that thing of, we don't have any. Who's our supervillains? You know, who are our New Zealand classical archetypal villains? And it's Mr Wilberforce. I mean, I was scared witless of that guy. And I used to live on Lake Papuki, so it was, you know, I believed it. It was there. It was happening, and I was a perfect age when it was coming through. And so, all of those sorts of things kind of made it. Yes, I'll take it in an instant. This was the first time I really had full facial prosthetics, and it was horrible. It was really horrible. It was like having depression. It was because you get 4.5 hours, and I'm normally a talkative guy. I like talking to the crew and making jokes and all that sort of thing. But here you get there 3 hours before the crew arrive. You spend 4.5 hours with the wet and makeup artists, who were amazing. They were, if it wasn't for them, I would have gone nutty. And then you step outside of the caravan once the crew is beginning to get there. You can't see because you've got these weird contacts, and you can't hear because you've got fake ears over the top of your head. And you can't talk because the more you talk, the more your makeup begins to, you know, kind of come off. We did little days, we did little half days, and then I had a 3-day session where it was 3 16-hour days in a row. And put it on the first day, and after the 16 hours of the first day, they pull it off, and it's literally, it's just glued to you, and then your skin's red, bright red, and you know, just horrible. And I went home, was like, oh God. And then because of the turnaround, you go straight to bed, get 5 6 hours sleep, go straight back in, they put it all on again. And at the end of the second day, they took it all off, and I was, you know, been isolated for 2 days. I took it off, and I went into my camper van to get charged, started crying. I was like in my camper crying. I was going, this is ridiculous. You know, kind of sorted myself out and went to sign out, and then got back in my car. I was like, and came in the next day and talked to them about it, and they said it's quite a common thing because it is so isolating. And then after that, I was okay. And the next 3-day stint where we did the same thing, it was irritating, but it wasn't frustrating. But it was just such a weirdly alienating thing.